What's up, everyone? I'm Tamara, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about codependent survival. Codependents have a lot of work to do, but sometimes they don't recognize it. But it can be tough being a codependent. So, people who are codependent have many survival patterns working inside their heads that help them cope and function. But it can also increase the level of anxiety. They function with a ton of opposing opposites that dictate their behavior and ways of functioning in the world. Codependent is characterized by excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a person, typically one who requires support on account of an illness or addiction of another person. The person can lack in trust for themselves and have poor self esteem. They may have an unhealthy dependence on relationships. Most of all, they have an exaggerated sense of responsibility for the actions of others. Why? Because the poor person more than likely grew up under the parental guidance of someone with a personality disorder. Check out my personality disorder videos, and that will give you more insight. These people's way of thinking and skeletal makeup, people with personality disorders, is different from your average person. If you have ever lived with a borderline or a narcissist, you are sort of in survival mode all the time. They can make you feel like the worst person in the world for the most minute infraction. In fact, you probably haven't done anything wrong. Perhaps you didn't stand close enough to them when you took a selfie together. The next thing you know, you're being screamed at and attacked as though you stole someone's bike. So, what internal work occurs when someone receives an extreme attack or punishment such as this for doing very little? It would restructure your brain or the way that you think to some degree, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you be in survival mode? Wouldn't you be like always blocking and gearing up for the next unwarranted attack? They begin to do internal work to figure out how they can avoid triggering the narcissist again. They feel like a very bad person even though they rationalize that they did nothing wrong. It's difficult to shake off a verbal attack, so the person can develop a system of opposites, which could be a form of splitting or black and white thinking patterns. I'm doing the best I can, but I feel like a bad person. I feel like I'm internally very self-aware and aware of other people. This is what someone with codependence may say, for example. I feel like I am a good person, but I feel like a terrible, horrible person at the same time. Let's say someone is interested in the codependent romantically, but the codependent is not interested. Opposites can come into play to survive the situation. Should I be mean to the person or extremely kind? Should I be straightforward and even rude so that I do not waste the person's time and they can move on with their life? Or should I be extremely kind, which could reel the person in more because the codependent knows how it feels to be rejected? What would you do? The unwanted attention could feel incredibly icky to the codependent, like enmeshment or too much of a need from a person who you have no obligation to. It can feel like the overly neediness of a family member. Codependents learn very early to put their own needs and desires aside for the sake of the other. How should you handle an unwanted suitor that you can't get away from? Perhaps the response should be somewhere in the middle. You are responsible for providing food, clothing, and shelter for your own children, for example. But in this scenario with a potential love relationship, what responsibility does the codependent have? Yes, the suitor's feelings may get hurt, and they may even feel some level of devastation due to the rejection. But that should not fall on the shoulders of the codependent. The suitor has to figure out and resolve their own personal issues and feelings in this matter. The codependent can step aside and trust that the other person can handle their own healing. It doesn't mean that they have to be cruel. You can be respectful without taking ownership of the other person's desire. But the codependent will probably spend an inordinate amount of time worried about the feelings and the heartache of the other person instead of focusing on their own self-preservation, protection, and all of that. So the codependent spends too much time on the other and not enough time doing their own internal work, protection, and safety, and they can go into deep denial about what's really going on. Codependents can feel internal confusion in many scenarios and go to extremes to make themselves feel safe. They may feel very strong, but weak. They may feel angry and wonder if they should function in kindness. You see how those are opposites? They may want to get really close to someone, but have a strong need to run away because they learned to be very much needed in their earlier relationships with a parent instead of what do I need? They don't have enough practice with getting their own needs met, and so trying to make decisions, figure things out, stick with their own point of view can be very taxing and confusing. So there are a million different opposites that codependents hold on to as they try to keep themselves safe and figure life out. So life can be a lot tougher for them to navigate than it might be for a different person because they're trying to be this super ego model of perfection when it comes to their behavior instead of what is it that I really need, and they will ignore that for the sake of others. So codependents have a lot of survival needs. Let us know in the comments if you find yourself with a lot of polar opposite types of behaviors as a codependent, and it's just your way of trying to cope and navigate life in a way where you're trying to function in a very high level of having high ethics and values, but not enough attention to yourself and what you need, and even telling yourself that you're bad and wrong for having very basic needs. So if you have had to deal with really difficult people like a narcissist, check out my book, The Workplace Narcissist. I talk a lot of details about how to handle them and what narcissism looks like, because a codependent is always trying to survive and protect themselves. Also, if you're struggling and need a little insight in your romantic life because you got that same thing going on, the polar opposites, my values versus that person's values, check out my book, Flip the Script on Love by Tamara Zyon. They're both on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. And definitely share this video with people that you know it will help. That's the only reason that I'm making it. So I hope you guys enjoy your day. Take good care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.